What if the real reason you are stuck or not moving as fast or as effectively as you would like isn't because you're not trying hard enough? What if it's because you think you know who you are and you don't? So, because if you haven't written down who you are, spoken it out loud, and committed to living it, you don't know who you are. Right? Now, recently, I shared 2 teachings that lead up to this. Don't worry, you don't need to know those right now. I will put the links in the comments, though, so you can go back and look at them if you like, because that will give you even more power. Because today, what we shall do is I will teach you how to truly define who you are to create your supreme self manifesto, which is your personal identity blueprint. Tell me, does that sound good or super fantastic? So, yes, that leads to a natural question, which is, what's a supreme self manifesto, dude? Well, it's a sacred set of declarations that defines your truest, noblest self. It's you at your best, beyond fear, beyond self-doubt. As my friend, colleague Amy Hardison puts it, it's the you that soars. Now, we can talk about the difference between affirmations, incantations, declarations, porcupines, and sweet potatoes. And let's not get lost in the words. Stay with me. Note this, though. Here in the United States of America, there's a famous document which is not called the Affirmation of Independence. It's the Declaration. So take it as a possibility that a declaration is something different. Now, in the last little while, I shared with you about 1, why affirmations actually not only often don't work, they actually often make things worse. 2, what you can do about it. 3, as Amy's husband, Steve, my mentor, Steve Hardison, says, if you don't take care of this, right, what is the process of putting frosting on poop, right? The undermining voices, the self-doubt voices, the self-recrimination voices. If you don't do that, then what happens is you're building your castle in the air without a foundation. Doesn't work. It's like quicksand. So hopefully by now, you've not only identified those self-judgments, you've done some of the work of healing them, right? Of forgiving them. And I say, by the way, some of the work, compassionate self-forgiveness, I described it as Hell Week, noticing, all the mean things I think and say about myself. Also Liberation Week, because if you get good at compassionate self-forgiveness, you've got a superpower. It's an ultimate cross-training skill that will serve you for the whole rest of your life. So I said a moment ago, some of, right? Because self-judgments, self-recrimination goes on forever, as far as I know. It gets easier because why? 1, we get good at it. And 2, we get good at what? We get good at forgiving ourselves. It happens quickly. Ooh, judgment comes. Dismantle it. And because the more we invest ourselves into who we really are, the more the old way doesn't exist anymore. So this thing I'm sharing with you today, the Supreme Self Manifesto, right? I have a friend who calls it his PTAC, Personal Truth and Commitment Document. Others call it their document. Some call it their I ams, right? It's the core of what I use for myself and what I use with my 5- and 6-figure clients to create ourselves, which means that's how we create our lives. Everything. That's actually how we manifest. Why? And why is this so important? Why, after my 30 years of obsession with personal and spiritual development, is this the most important thing I can possibly share with you? Because the river of causality highlights and shows us that who you are being, your identity, is the most important thing. It's the highest leverage. So, quick review. What do you want? Why are you here? What would you love to manifest? What would you love to create in your life? Most people say more income, more clients, better relationships, higher quality health. I've got a couple clients that are like more connection to spirit, to evolution, right? Whatever it is for you, you want results, right? Everybody wants results here in our lives, in our world. We want results. And what comes before results? Action. Before action, what determines our action, our inaction, the effectiveness of our action? It is our thoughts. Thoughts and feelings and language, they're all kind of mixed together. And then wise beings that we are, we go one step further up the river of causality to the source, and that is who we are being, who you be. And being, or identity, or vibration, that is what determines everything else. And why is that the place to put our energy? Primarily, first, most important, highest leverage, because you can't get clean water from a bitter well. Whatever's up here is going to trickle down. So, here's what you do. Especially now that you've cleaned up some of the foundation, right? Cleaned up the poop, built a foundation, right? You get to write out who you really are. And you planted some seeds for that before, right? Because once we forgive, we get that space, then we go, for the truth is, I am, or I am someone who, I'm the kind of person that, right? So these are seeds of declarations that define who you really are. Now, give you an example. Oh my goodness. It was 2 years ago already. My daughter, Zeta. She's been driving her car so long now. I barely remember this story. However, there was a time when she was in driver's ed. Whew, scary time, let me tell you, right? Sitting in the passenger seat while she's driving like this. The first day we drove together, she hit a tree and the refrigerator in our garage. Everybody was okay. So clearly we made it through this period. However, it culminated. It was a difficult period. Like there were delays with getting the driver's ed course, and then we had a bunch of problems with the car wasn't, this was my fault. The car wasn't up to date on its safety check. It was fine. I just hadn't done it. Wasn't up to date with the registration. And we go to get the registration and we have to, so we get to the DMV. And as you can imagine, Zeta, my daughter, she's a bit worried about this because especially here on Maui, there's some weird thing where the people that do the driver's tests, they apparently love to fail people. Because most of the kids going in, whatever, almost 16 years old, most of them fail the first time, sometimes the second time, sometimes the third time. So she's nervous. I'm nervous. I get nervous about it's still like an old reflex, going to some authority, right? Talking to a police officer, get pulled over. What did I do wrong? Right. And DMV has this stern attitude. So we go to the counter and we got to make sure we get everything correct. We've got all the documents in the right order and everything. We hand them over and we checked it like 4 times. We got everything correct, hand it over. The woman's looking at it. Finally, she says, wait a minute. So, oh no. The name on your registration is different than the name on your ID. I'm like, turns out 6 or 7 years ago, I changed my legal name, right? Daniel Aaron used to be my middle name. I changed it legally 7 years ago. And when I did, the Department of Motor Vehicles, the very same one, told me, doesn't matter for your registration, doesn't matter at all. There's no point in coming in, but don't worry about it. So I explained to her, She says, well, it matters. Can't do it. So I can feel my daughter next to me. You know, I don't know if you have kids or not, but you can just sense I can sense what's going on with her. She's starting to melt down. And I'm like, just silently saying to her, hold it together. Don't go crazy. Don't blow up in front of this woman. That'll make it worse. So we get outside. Now, before I tell you what happened then, let me tell you what I did that morning. That morning, I did my Supreme Self Manifesto. And when I say I did it, I mean I activated and cultivated. I had already written it, crafted it, revised it, the manifesto. And so that morning I used it. And I call it the Supreme Self Sacrament, or a positive ritual, or a habit, just, the stuff we do in the morning. So I had done that morning. One of the ways that I work with it is I speak out loud. I will invite you to do the same very soon. I speak out loud my manifesto. And so I did that morning. And one of the things I say in that process is I am unconditional love and prodigious patience. I am unconditional love and prodigious patience. Now, when it comes to a manifesto, we're creating who we are. We are not attempting to describe reality exactly as it is. So here's an important point. When you create your manifesto, there are two aspects to what you create with it. One is, who are you becoming? Right? Who are you becoming? And we could call that aspirational, on the level that, am I always patient and am I always unconditional love? Nope. Ask anybody who knows me well. I mess up with that. I'm not there yet. I'm aspiring to, I'm creating myself into that. There are other aspects of your Supreme Self Manifesto that are incontrovertible. There's nothing you could do that change. I'm a divine child of God, for instance. Right? I am loving and loved. Right? That's true. That's just inherently true. And it's still good for me to write it and speak it, to associate, to remember, to remind myself why. You might ask, is this so important? Because if we don't do this, we just tend to default to our old self, our habitual self, the familiar ways of being that we've been, our conditioned ways of being. So that morning, I spoke out my declarations. I am unconditional love and prodigious patience. Then back to Zeta and I walking out of the DMV. We get outside, and then Zeta starts crying. Quickly, from the crying becomes rage. You messed up. This is your fault. I'm never going to get my... And man, my little girl, she got a temper. She let it fly. Now, inside me, what was going on is, how dare you? I've ridden passenger with you. I spent money on this. I got the car fixed. I got the refrigerator fixed. I didn't get the tree fixed. I stressed out. I spent so much time. I did all this stuff to help you get your license, and now you're going to blame. That was like my instant reaction. You know how it can happen? Can happen for me when somebody blames me, when their anger comes at me. Part of me wants to defend, to fight. So that'll happen in an instant. And I could feel myself about to yell back at her or speak in strong tones. And I paused. And I knew that if I did that, it would escalate her. And pretty soon we could be saying stuff to each other that we don't mean and that we can't take back. And somehow I flashed back to that morning. I am unconditional love and prodigious patience. And even now I can get emotional because it was a beautiful experience. I let her vent it out. And there's another declaration I say, I am innocence, forgiving myself and everyone, prioritizing understanding over the need to be understood. I wanted her to understand how much I had done, how much I've sacrificed. What's more important to me, though, is understanding. And of course, she'd be upset. Of course, she'd blame me. And you know what? She's right. I could have thought of that thing. I could have double checked. There's ways I could. She's right. So I just let her vent. And I said, you're right. Yeah. I wish I'd known. I wish I'd thought of that. I'm really sorry. Right. The rage dissipated. In time, I said, okay, well, let's get this fixed. Let's figure out what we can do from here. And we did. And she's driving. Currently driving herself to work. So, why do I share all that with you? Because my Supreme Self Manifesto, including my use of it, changed who I am, and it changed the results in my life. Now that may seem like, I don't know what that seems like to you. That's a relationship example. I've got dozens of them in business, related to my body, right? In all aspects of my life. All right. So hopefully you got a sense of what that means. Let's check in. How we doing? On time? Perfect. So how do you do it? Right? How do you create your Supreme Self Manifesto? Well, one, clean up the poop, build a solid foundation. Forgiveness counts. Then, now you can say you're going to channel it from the divine, from your higher self. Cool. Or you could say, I'm just going to brainstorm, heartstorm, and write down who I want to be, who I am at my best. However you want to do it, whether it's mental, emotional, whether it's channeled, whether you get it from other people, you ask the question, who am I without limitation? Who do I want to be? What's my best self? My supreme self. And write it down. So number one step is make a, technical term here, big ass list. Make a big list. Write everything you can possibly think about. Who you want to be, what you want to be experiencing in your life, who you are committed to being, right? And the statements are about who you be, right? Because here's the thing. One of the coolest aspects of being human is, well, we're always being. Every creature is always being. Humans, though, we have the ability to pause and go, oh, who am I being right now? I'm being loving. I'm being kind. I'm being selfish. I'm being afraid. I'm being petty. I'm being generous. We have the ability to stop and look and say, who am I being? And then we also have the ability to change who we are being. So what you are doing in this process to write out your manifesto, version 1, big ass list, all the stuff of who you want to be, who you choose to be. And the statements are usually, I am, or it might be, I am someone who, I am that, right? And I'll give you in the description or down below in the description, I'll give you some examples of what this can look like, anonymous ones, and you can borrow, you can get inspired from it. And once you've got a big list, remember, by the way, as the phrase goes, done is better than perfect. Don't get stuck by trying to get it just right. This is version 1. Get it done. So once you've got a big list, then your second step is to say, what patterns do I see here? Well, I've got 12 of them about body, 3 about relationships, 4 about wealth, 5 about my mission in life. Cool. Well, those ones that put them together, the ones that are of the same sort of theme. And then can you combine them? Can you pull them together? Right? Because what you're going for in your version 1 is 5 or 10 statements, 10 or 20, whatever you want. For most people, less is more to start with. And really important note, it's yours. You can't do it wrong. There is no right way. So whatever works for you. Okay. I'm just checking my notes to see if there's anything I haven't said about it. So this version, draft 1. By the way, right now, we're going deep about 1 foot. 1 foot deep into a topic, self-creation, your highest self, your masterpiece life that goes 40, 50 feet down. We're just going to I know it's a lot already I'm sharing with you, and there's much more. However, and if you do this, your life will change. Guaranteed, absolutely, 100%. And we've got more coming up, how to activate and cultivate that supreme self. So now, well, in fact, now, to clarify, your aim at the completion of this, before you get my next video, 5 days from now, have a draft 1, 5 to 10 statements, 10 to 20 statements, whatever you want in there, declarations, and start activating and cultivating it. We'll go into greater depth on that next part of this training. For now, though, here's what you do. Start that process by reading out loud your declarations at least twice a day, usually early in the morning, usually toward the evening. Good time also, bonus, when you start falling back into that old self, habitual self, feeling low, doubtful, self-judgment comes up. What if I can't? Because this process of speaking out who you really are at your best changes us quickly, instantly. I do this every day with great enthusiasm. And on that note, I encourage you, when you speak it out loud, even in this early stage, get some energy into it. Maybe theatrical, right? Sometimes I do this. I'm walking around the room and I'm speaking to the painting on the wall, and I'm speaking to my cat, and I'm speaking, and I speak it out to, well, we'll get into more detail later. Bring some energy to it. That's all I'll say. So you got it? In the next 5 days, make sure you got draft 1 complete. Start speaking it out loud. I will be back with you. And then we're going to go deeper into activation and cultivation, which is so key, by the way, because let's be clear. If you create your Supreme Self Manifesto and then do nothing with it, you made things worse, right? And I don't say that like to freak you out. Right? Just don't stop there. Keep going. Because if we really get clear on who we are at our best, and then we don't do anything about it, what do we have? Disappointment. We have a sense that I know there's more, but I'm not doing anything about it. And on the flip side, as you develop a simple, fun, joyous practice to activate and cultivate it, then you've got this knowing in your body, I am creating my supreme self. I'm creating myself into who I can be. So powerful. All right. If you got questions, comments, boom, please put them in the comments. I would love to see. I will read. I will share. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for stepping into your supreme self. I love you. Aloha.